What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel and to another Outriders video. A couple of days / videos ago I highlighted a debuff devastator, a class that I really enjoyed playing and a type of style of play that I'm really starting to enjoy a lot with the game now. Because we don't really have timers to worry about, we're moving towards a more synergistic meta where the idea is that not only that your character should be capable and strong and able to do CT15s by themselves, but that you're able to add some form of synergy to your teammates in co-op, which of course either debuffs the enemies and makes them, more feeble or useless, or it actually buffs up the damage of your teammates. Now today we're going to look at something like that, but in the Pyromancer form. Probably, in my opinion, the strongest debuff class in the game, at least based on what I'm able to see with this and also what I was able to test with other players in co-op. But if you do find this video entertaining or helpful in any way, please do consider giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, or maybe sharing it with a buddy. It really does help the channel grow and it just means a whole lot to me. But without any further ado, let's go. Now before we go into any detail around the build, I do want to take some time to give out some thanks and some appreciation to some fantastic support that I've received on the Discord channel. More specifically, that debuff characters or builds, and then specifically Pyromancer, seems to have been a labor of love for myself and some of the other contributors on the Discord channel, and it's really been a pleasure working with these guys and sharing information, sharing builds, sharing theories, and just group thinking through this. So in no specific order, I do want to thank Free Agent Dan, I want to thank Steve Talford, and I do want to thank Wolf Gaming. There's a little bit of each of everything that you guys shared with me in this build, but as a whole this wouldn't exist if we all didn't collaborate on this, and I cannot tell you thanks enough for that. Of course, the gist of this build is making enemies take more anomaly and weapon damage, and this is done through a combination of Heat Wave, Ash Blast, and Thermal Bomb, and all the general debuffs that are associated with those skills, as well as some selective choosing within the skill tree to accentuate those abilities, and last but not least, some very specific mods on our weapon of choice. Now you can play this build solo, and the footage that you've been seeing in the background is me running CT15s with this, which you can complete, obviously not nearly at the same speed as you can as a overgeared Technomancer or a class that's specifically meant to push solo content is. But really where the juice starts showing up with this class is when you combine this build with another class that's a primary damage dealer. The footage in the background that you're seeing here now is my good friend Roman Wins running a Trickster, and us two together with me debuffing and him then going all in, no full glass cannon, we are able to push out so much damage that you essentially just melt literally anything on the screen. Now, one of the really interesting things about this particular debuff is one of the things that I incorporated into it as well is we often do carries where we take people through Eye of the Storm content, and generally speaking I build a Eye of the Storm debuff pyro different to originally how I would have built just a normal expedition pyro. That is now combined into this, so what you're looking at here is the complete package. This Pyromancer is able to do CT15s but solo, and then is also able to debuff and work in a team of either co-op or trios, duos or trios in an expedition environment, but is also able to fulfill the role of debuff pyro in an Eye of the Storm expedition, either in, again, a duos or a trios. Now, even though my goal is to eventually build a debuff class for each one of the four, and now having done Devastator and Pyro, I can fairly comfortably say that Pyro will probably be not only my favorite way of playing a debuff class, but also probably the most effortless one to play in this way. During the entire time that we were testing this co-op, not once was I in any danger, and I could just effortlessly sit in the back and sling the spells and debuff things, and then every once in a while hit them with my weapon to introduce those debuffs as well. Now when it comes to the actual build, let's go ahead and look at skills first. As mentioned, we're using Heat Wave, Thermal Bomb, and Ash Blast. Their cooldowns are 6.7, 7.3, and 14.1 seconds respectively. So super low cooldowns, especially on Heat Wave and Thermal Bomb, which just allows you to push out the damage that these two skills provide, but as well the debuffing, which is the main focus of this build. Heatwave allows excellent ramp up ability, as well as Thermal Bomb with something like Branded, and Ash Blast is a great CC ability that not only adds additional damage onto the enemies, but immobilizes them in place and allows you to maybe get out of trouble if you're taking a lot of fire. When we get to the actual weapon itself, Voodoo Matchmaker works perfectly here because by default it rolls with Ultimate Damage Link. Ultimate Damage Link shares the anomaly and weapon damage between a group of 4 enemies, whatever you're shooting at essentially. While this is not that great by itself, once you are in a team situation, this is fantastic because it turns every group of enemies into a sticky situation. We're combining this with a tier 3 mod called Anomaly Mutation. Now what Anomaly Mutation does is it takes, as soon as an enemy has a status on it and you shoot that enemy, then it takes that status, multiplies it, and turns it into another status. So let's say for argument's sake something's got burn on it, then when you shoot it, it keeps the burn on, but now it also, for argument's sake, freezes the enemy. And then if you keep shooting, then it also puts toxic on the enemy. And this is completely random, of course, but this is on a 1-second cooldown and keeps just adding on more and more of these debuffs. Now, there are some cases where this can be resisted, and that's okay, because the point is, as soon as one of these effects is resisted, the other ones don't fall off or anything like that. They keep going, and even if it resists 1 or 2 of these in a row, then the gun just keeps on trying to apply these. Now, you're gonna be killing stuff so fast that you're not really gonna see how sexy this is, but once you fight bosses and you're able to put a bunch of shots into them, you're gonna see all kinds of funky things happening, like a boss going from burning and toxic to suddenly frozen to then also being ashen, and this is all happening without you actually having to use any of those skills. So this really is quite fantastic in that environment. And it also does help out quite a bit when you're actually playing this class solo, because in that case you're not pushing out that much damage. So every little bit of extra, sort of nuance that you can add, and that you can add, little status effects to it, is just going to increase your chance of dealing more damage. This has weird situations where it ultimately just melts things. So my best advice to you would be to try this out. This might not seem like a good thing, and I know that originally when this skill was revealed, people thought it was the best thing ever, and then sort of interest died out on it. But I invite you to give this a try. It is actually pretty ridiculous. Now, I do have a Funeral Pyre with Shadow Comet and Claymore Torrent on here as well as a Torment and Agony with Moaning Winds and Clip Combustion. But I hardly ever switch weapons. If I run into a situation where I am being bomb rushed by a bunch of enemies and I'm playing solo, what I might do is I might hit them with an ultimate damage link and then switch to the Funeral Pyre and hit him once with that burst, and that's going to pull down a bunch of Shadow Comets and a bunch of Claymore Torrents on everything in that cluster, and they're all going to take more damage because of the ultimate damage share, or the ultimate damage link rather. So good combination here, but I do have to be 100% honest, and that is mostly stuff dies so fast, especially in a group environment, that there's no real reason to even be switching between weapons. Just concentrate on hitting stuff that has statuses on them, so you can multiply those statuses, and so you can apply ultimate damage link as much as possible. Both of those are on 1-second cooldowns, so using an assault rifle like this is your best bet, because you just increase the amount of times that you can apply that in one clip. And when we go over to the gear itself, again, this is transmog, but what you're looking at is you're looking at 3-piece Akari. Now, I know what you might be thinking, oh Jesus, another 3-piece Akari. The point is this: while the other sets that Pyromancer has are not terrible by any means, and surely not as bad as some of the other classes have them, the bottom line is the Akari set is really, really good. And that's simply because if you're using Heatwave in the Akari set, you're able to ramp your anomaly power up so high, it's ridiculous not to use it. So I'm using the head piece, the chest piece, and the leg piece here. That gives me the 3-piece bonus of Akari, which says enemy. Oh my god. Every enemy damaged by Heatwave, I managed to get it out, can you believe it? Grants 50% additional anomaly bonus for 10 seconds. You can get this up to a maximum of 300%, which is a huge boost of additional anomaly power that you can have. Now, on here I have Fire Tsunami, which increases the width of my Heatwave so you can catch as many enemies as possible. And then I also have Double Fun on here, which allows me to, when I shoot out a Thermal Bomb, the Thermal Bomb basically divides in 2 and hits 2 enemies. If there's only 1 enemy, it doesn't put 2 onto 1, it only hits 1. That's unfortunately how it works, but that's the thing. Now, just as a side note, the substats that we're looking for on our gear, we definitely want status power and we definitely want cooldown reduction. Now, we don't get to choose those on our legendary pieces, of course, but you'll definitely see on my 2 purple pieces that I've chosen to put on status power and cooldown reduction. Now, you might notice over here, I've got bonus firepower on, and that's simply because this is the best piece of gear that I could find with lasting fire on, which I wanted. Now, would I replace this with something that says anomaly power, status power, and cooldown reduction? Absolutely, as long as I can get the same mods. But in its current form right now, and that's all the footage that we're seeing at the start, was this. So it would make almost no difference. I don't think it would. However, I'll be sure to share an update if that additional 13k anomaly power makes this even more broken than it already is. But getting to the chest piece, I have branded on here. This is the main debuffer of this. Branded is fantastic. This makes enemies that are affected by thermal bomb receive 40% more damage. That can be bullet damage, that can be anomaly damage. Then we have tidal wave on here, which gives us our second heat wave. This build features 2 heat waves and 2 thermal bombs, so that's our second heat wave. When we get over to the pants, we have anomaly echo on here, which basically just gives you a small amount of firepower and anomaly power every time when you activate a skill. Your skills on such low cooldown, you can essentially always have this 15-second buff up. Then we have fire frenzy on here, which gives us our second thermal bomb. So that's 2 thermal bombs and 2 heat waves. Then when we get over to the gloves, we have burnt out on here. Now, burnt out says that enemies damaged by heat wave take 25% more damage for 8 seconds. So there's our other debuff mechanic as well. We also have death sentence on here, which says that your weapon damage, so this is only for you though. Your weapon damage and anomaly damage against enemies affected by the skill Ash Blast, which is everything because you hit like a huge group, are increased respectively by 40% and 30%. Now, there's 2 reasons why this is a big deal. First of all, you are able to often open up a combo with an Ash Blast, and then if stuff is like nicely grouped up together, maybe a Devastator has brought them together, or maybe they're all running at you in a corridor, like for instance monsters, then you can Ash Blast them, which means they all stand on top of each other, and now when you run heat waves and thermal bombs through them, they're all going to benefit from this death sentence additional damage. Now, also you could shoot them with the Voodoo Matchmaker, and that would also deal more damage as well. When we get to the boots, we have lasting fire on here. Now, this increases the time that you have to drop an enemy to 0 life, which procs the thermal bomb and makes them explode by 3 seconds. I've messed around with not using this and using this in a co-op environment where enemies have more HP, and sometimes you have to coordinate a bit better and tell guys, okay guys, the thermal bombs are on these guys or something like that. These 3 seconds can be golden in making sure that you still get that thermal bomb explosion to go off, which is a pretty big deal. You want those explosions to go off. Lastly but not least, we also have Ash increased range on here. Ash Blast by default has a super small range. Now, you have no way of going across the battlefield fast. So if you're playing with character classes like Tricksters that jump up behind stuff, Devastators that leap, then you will sometimes find yourself in the back row, and so you have to run and gun and always catch up. That makes it hard for you to use Ash Blast effectively, because a lot of the times you're kind of like out of combat, and while your other skills like Thermal Bomb and Heat Wave can hit the enemies, Ash Blast can't. With this, it can. Furthermore, the point is that you can reach almost across the entire view that you have and lock stuff down with Ash Blast, which is a pretty big deal. Then when we go over to the class tree itself, this is a very, very crazy little mixture here. And any of you that are paying attention will know that this is the same skill setup that I used for my cookie cutter starting out playing a Pyromancer video that I released yesterday. And that's because I find that this setup here gives you the best of each little thing on this tree here. We're not heavily investing into either one of the 3 trees because, again, the main point of this build is not so much, while you can do solo content, no problemo, the main point of this is co-op expeditions. And when we build it in this way, we benefit the most from each one of these little nodes that we pick up along the way. So we are picking up as much cooldown reduction as we can. We're also making sure to get anomaly power so that we can get our skills up. And we're picking up things like wildfire, so it drops all of our cooldowns down. We're picking up extinction so that we deal 20% more damage against stuff that's below 30% HP. We're picking up distant flame, which gives us, for all of these health nodes that we're picking up, which makes us a little bit sturdier, we're getting additional anomaly power for that. We're absolutely getting Incinerate, and it's, you know, baby node Curse of Pompeii, because Incinerate means that at the minute something stops burning from getting hit with a heat wave, then immediately it turns to ash as well, which again just CCs the enemy, makes him stand still, and makes him take more damage. Then this over here, Curse of Pompeii, makes ash last longer, but remember all of those status pieces that you have as well, that also makes ash last longer. So a lot of the times you have more than enough time to cycle abilities on things again, especially non-boss characters when they have the ash status on them. More than that, your teammates are able to position and murder those things before they come out of ash. And last but not least, we use hot situation here, and this is the ramp up mechanic. So you saw how I said just now how sometimes, or most of the time, we'll want to try and open up combat with Ash Blast. This is why. We're going to open up with Ash Blast. That's going to CC stuff. It's going to get them to stand still. They're going to take the additional damage from Death Sentence. But now also you're ramping up your anomaly power by 45% due to hot situation. That means you're going to go thermal bomb, and then as those thermal bombs are cooking on those guys, you're going to hit them heat wave, and that'll just drag all the enemies down, and whatever doesn't immediately get murdered by your teammates, which caused the thermal bombs to explode, will die to the burn, which will cause them to explode as well. So that was a lot, but that's it for the build. Thanks so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know in the comments down below if you have something similar to this, if you've been playing around with this, and what your thoughts are, which skills, which mods, what would you switch. But I definitely encourage you, if you enjoy the debuffing playstyle, to give this a whirl. I've tried it on most different characters, and I'm bringing those videos to you guys, but this is by far the most fun that I've had playing this, while also just being able to do it so easily. It's an incredibly easy class to learn, and it's an incredibly easy rotation to master, and it's an incredibly fun way to play alongside your friends, as everybody screams like little girls when stuff explodes because of thermal bomb and everything takes so much damage. But that's it. It's super important to me that you have a fantastic afternoon, a good morning, and a great evening wherever you are in the world. I did that the other way around now. But until next video, fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me.